Hey there, Robbie Overson here. And have you ever wanted to create something, pursue something, go for a dream, anything like that? Well, if you have, then you know what I'm just about to go through. Like, this is something that I've wanted to do for a long time. I've been silent, except for a few people who know what I've been up to. And so I just want to let people know because I know in order to get it out there, I need to just get it out there. So this is me practicing. Uh, Putting myself out there on a topic that I feel is really important. I think it's something that should be important to other people, but I understand why it's not. And that's one of the things that I'm going to talk about. So a little bit of background about me, right? So since I was about 14 or 15, I was in high school as a sophomore. I had a science class, and we were watching um, a documentary about pollution. And in this documentary, I was just shocked. I couldn't believe how much air pollution and water pollution and that was being just put out into the environment. Look, and you got to keep in mind this is the 90s, and so since that time, it's in many ways it's gotten worse or just more of that. Now, in some ways, there's things that have gotten better, but overall, we have put out more pollution into our waterways and into the air, into our land as well. And so, when I saw that video, I went home. I was talking to my parents, talking to my friends, and nobody really understood what I was talking about. It wasn't a concern for them, and in fact, I had a few people, some of my really good dear friends, you know, they gave me shit for it. They made fun of me, which is what friends are supposed to do, right? That's what we do, especially boys. Uh, anyway, so the reason but it was one of those things that if you ever had one of those moments where it just boom, it hit you, you knew that that was something that had to be important to you, and that was important to me from that moment. And I've pursued it to varying degrees. I've put it off to varying degrees, but every time I come back to it, it's one of those things where I'm like, this is really important. This is something that's important to me. I think it should be important to other people. But like I said, I understand why it's not to some degree. So what I want to help people to understand is what they can do about it. And my intention is to make it super simple, super easy to help people to understand. So I don't have a name for this business. I just call it the green business for now. Um, but essentially, what I want to do, my mission really is to educate people, to help people to understand, to know and understand why it's so important to take interest and responsibility in being more environmentally responsible individually, but also as a household, and then take actions that work and last. So, what I'm saying, the result of the years that I've been putting this together is that people will be empowered to make healthier choices so they feel better about what they consume, what and how they consume, and the impact it has on their health. And there's three specific aspects of health that I'm referring to. So the first one is our human health, right? All we have is our bodies, inside and outside. That's all we got when it comes to our human health. You could say the mind and all those things. I'm just saying it's all contained in this body, inside and out. But then also you have environmental health. So environmental health is important because what we put out into the environment, we get back. A simple, clear example is, let's just look at exhaust, right? We're driving around our cars for convenience, for work, for recreation, those kinds of things. And what happens is we're actually polluting the air, and then we're getting, to some degree, like some people, especially who have asthma, breathing problems, they're getting sick from that kind of a thing. So what I'm saying is, like, the environment reciprocates back to us what we put into it. We'll talk about that more as we go through this. Also, there's economic health. Now, this can be the most confusing for people, but what I mean when I'm talking about economic health is if there are products that we purchase that are either owned by companies who are around on the other side of the country or on the other side of the world versus a company that's here locally. So, like, just as an example, Nestle, right? So they're based out of Switzerland. They're a multinational, conglomerate, or multinational conglomerate. But if there's a product that, let's just say, somebody in my neighborhood or in my city or even in my state or regionally, that they make a similar type of product, then it actually makes more sense to give them that money because it keeps that money inside of our economy. It actually local makes our local economy healthier if we can do that. So that's why I feel like those three health aspects are important. That's a theme that just recurs throughout everything that we talk about here with the green business, because we really do want to help people to understand some of the impacts. And I feel like that when we can be responsible for those impacts, then now we can do something about it and be more responsible for it, and we'll have a more positive impact on those three aspects of health. Okay. So what our belief is that people are actually interested in being environmentally responsible, but there's three things at play in particular, right? So first of all, people are busy, right? You've got work, you got family, you got church, sports, civic responsibilities, all these different things that are grabbing our attention, and so they're not spending that time to understand how to be more responsible for our impact. And I'm not saying anything about it. I'm just saying that's the reality. Then the other thing is that a lot of people just don't know. I don't know what to do, or what the impact it will have, or what the impact that some of the ways that I operate, um, what is the impact that they currently have. A lot of people just don't know that. And then the other thing is that a lot of people just don't trust, right? Just people are sick of trusting organizations because of misleading information, or other factors, right? Just as an example, one of the examples that I use when I'm talking to people is DuPont, right? So DuPont creates Teflon. Teflon ends up poisoning people who live locally around the plant, but then also Teflon ends up poisoning 98% of the population, which I'll talk about here. Okay, so now also we believe that if people knew the actual impact on our health, remember the health aspects, right? Human, environment, and economy, and how we operate individually and as a household, that I believe that two things would occur. Okay, so first, people would be shocked at the reality of the situation. Just let that sink in for a minute. So people would be shocked at the reality of the situation. Okay, and the second is that people would be willing to make changes if certain criteria were met. And here's what I'm saying the criteria are, is that they have confidence they are actually making an impact, a positive impact, by making these changes. It's simple enough and easy enough to implement the changes. It's affordable to do so, and possibly money saving, and it doesn't have too much of an impact on their quality of life. Okay, so that's what I'm saying is what's possible. That's our belief. Okay, so because here's the problem. Okay, so that's what I want to help people to understand, that there is a reality that we have to be responsible for. Okay, so, and what I'm saying is this. Okay, so when we look at the top polluting countries in the world, and I'll cite my data as well. Okay, we're top polluting countries in the world. So if we look at the total population of the world, we're talking of roughly 7.8 billion people. That's a stat as of March 2020. Okay, so China is the most polluting country in the world. Okay, so they have 30% of the pollution on the planet comes from China, and they have 1.4 billion people is their population size. Now, when you look at the U.S., okay, so we have 15% of the total pollution, so half of what China has, and we have 330 million people. Okay, so I'm going to come back to that here in just a second. But the other players I'm not super concerned about, because I'm just talking about the United States mostly, but the other ones are India, 1.3 billion, with 7% of the pollution. Russia, 147 million people, 5% of the pollution. Japan, 126 million people with 4% of the total pollution. Okay, so the point that I'm trying to get to right at this moment is this. The reality check is that when you look at the US compared to China, the US has, like I said, half of China's pollution, but the US has a quarter of China's population. So when you actually do the numbers, the math, that means the US is 2 times more polluting than China per capita. So here's the math. I'll show you. You can do it yourself. They have 4 times as many people as we do, but we're half as, our contribution is half as polluting, right? So that's really what I'm saying, is the literal impact that we have. And so what I'm saying is that as Americans, we are all contributing to being the largest polluters on the planet because of our standard of living, right? But it's not like we're driving around our vehicles to work, or working in these buildings, or living in our homes, or going to events, um, shopping for food, clothes, other products, thinking that we're contributing to the problem. And look, and I'm not saying this is easy for people to hear, but I think it's important for people to know and understand that there is a reality that we are all responsible for as Americans, right? And so what I'm saying is that knowing this and understanding this is actually a really good thing, because then now we can go, okay, so I understand and I accept responsibility that I'm part of that problem as an individual and as a household. Okay, so this is an example, right? So did you know that the average home produces twice as the average greenhouse gases as the average car? Okay, so in fact, 15% of all greenhouse gases are generated from the energy used in houses nationwide. That comes from the EPA, okay, and Energy Star. So that's just a reality that I think is important for people to understand. Um, so, but the other part of it is this. I don't want to just say, oh, it's all our fault. We're horrible people as Americans, right? Because yeah, but we do have to accept some responsibility. That's where it starts. But what about corporate responsibility, right? It's not all our fault. Okay. There's a quote that I'm going to put up here. Okay. We want to believe corporate America. It's too horrible to believe that every day we get up, we're at the mercy of a corporation who might lie to us, who might poison us, who might create a product that might kill us for profit. Okay, so that comes from a documentary called The Devil We Know about um, the DuPont chemical company. Okay, so they're, like I said earlier, they're the creators of Teflon. And for decades, they knowingly poisoned the water supply that service the city where their workers lived with their families. There's even there's a documentary about it, like I said, and there's also a movie with Mark Ruffalo, I think that's his name, that's called Dark Waters. Okay, I'll put a link to it. Um, so in a letter from a DuPont executive, they admitted, this is a quote, okay, we are already liable for the operation of the last 32 years. Okay, they admitted that in the 1980s, and they kept doing business as usual. It took this one attorney and the support of the community to essentially bring all of this, to expose all of this about DuPont. And here's the thing, right? So what they discovered is that there's a chemical called C8. Okay, look, they found it in 98% of the human population. 98% of the human population, not just the US population. I'm talking about globally. Okay, they had to go back to the 1950s to find blood samples from before the Korean War that were to find blood that wasn't contaminated with C8. Okay, 98% people, you might as well call it 100. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. So, but that's the kind of information I want to bring to people's attention and to help them to understand what there is to do about it. Because here's the thing, it's not just DuPont, right? Think about, if you've, heard, several years ago, there was a scandal that was surrounded around VW and their diesel engines. BMW was involved, other companies were involved, but there's these other companies that are doing similar things or have done similar things and gotten busted. Okay, so we need to bring these attention to people so that then we can go, okay, well, now what do we do about it? That really is my point. Okay, so here's my job. My job is to show you your individual and your household impact, and then what to do about it. That's why I'm here. That's what I've been working on. That's what I want to share with you. So I hope that you're willing to kind of watch some of these videos and participate with me, ask questions, help me improve it, because I want to get this message out to people like you and your family and your friends, so that we can be responsible for our individual and our household impact, and figure out ways that we can improve that so that we have better health inside and outside of our bodies, our human health, better health for our environment, and better health for our economy. Okay? I look forward to sharing everything with you. And please let me know in comments or however you think you can get me, a comment or a message, DM me, whatever. I'd love to hear some